Welcome to First Dates and Soulmates, where we are talking about the holy trinity of holiday novels. We're talking Grumpy Sunshine, Christmas Tree Farms, and Snowed In Mountain Cabin. I am your co-host, Meg Casebolt.
And I'm Nikki McKnight.
And we are here with Norah Pritchard. Norah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Norah just released her third novel, If You Were Mine, and it is everything that I wanted in a snowed-in Adirondacks holiday romance set in the town where Norah and I both live.
Yeah. That must be real meta of just like, this is our town. I know that road. I know that store. Is that so-and-so under a thinly veiled guise of, for legal reasons, I can't specifically say that that's Bob, but y'all know it's Bob.
I do recognize some of the archetypes, we'll say. I don't know who the sheriff of our town is, but he might be sexier than I realized. Norah might have awakened something here.
I'll never tell.
So, Norah, tell us a little bit about the whole series. Tell us about the Northfield series and like what inspired you to write this, and then we'll dive specifically into this book.
Awesome. So, as you mentioned, Northfield is set in our town, loosely inspired by our town, right? Which is this quaint, cozy, charming. It's really, you have to see it to believe it because it is so cute of a town. But there's messy love stories in it. And I absolutely love the idea of exploring this family of women, this matriarchal family. And that's kind of what started it. So I have two sisters. My family is very much set up like these fictional characters. Not exactly the same, but there are lots of inspiration within my family, and I just like the idea of exploring how these women relate to each other, how they support each other, how they every one of their relationships with the aunts and the mother and the sisters either push them forward somehow or hold them back somehow, and I just love exploring that within this cozy, amazing town.
And so you have the oldest sister came first. She moved back to the town, so that way you got sort of the introduction or reintroduction of the town. And then you have the next sister who ends up married to the mayor at the end of that one. So what is it about Lily in book 3, in If You Were Mine, that you were like, Lily comes next, and Lily's been engaged for the previous 2 books. So why Lily's story? Why did it start here?
So Lily's story, I kind of teased her a little bit in the first 2 stories as, with Tucker, her sisters didn't like Tucker, her fiance, and I just thought Lily is a very typical kind of third, like middle child, kind of. She's a twins, but she, technically she's a middle child, and she's a people pleaser. And I just really liked exploring how she could find agency, and I needed the most dramatic way possible for that to happen. So hence we came up with the Runaway Bride, and it was a lot of fun to write her and how she comes into her own. With somebody completely different than her fiance.
Yeah, completely
the broody
different.
Sheriff.
Yeah, the very grumpy sheriff.
Delicious.
And why is Lily's story like the holiday story, the winter story?
Well, I kind of actually loosely just figured that I wanted to do, so the other side of Forever is fall. I don't know if you caught that, but it's kind of like the fall theme, and then Maybe Someday With You is summer. And then this one, If You Were Mine, winter, and then the final sister, Evie Hart, will be spring. So, and it's been fun to kind of make them fit the seasons because Northfield is such a fun town with all these different traditions, like Candlelight Night and the Harvest Festival. So it really helps me create this small town atmosphere by setting it seasonally.
Yeah, I texted you that the night that our town had Candlelight Night, I was inside under a blanket reading the candlelight scene. I was like, fuck, it's cold out there. I don't want to be out there. And then the next night I took my kid to karate and everyone was like, wow, there was a parking issue on Candlelight Night. And I'm like, that did not make it into the romance novel.
I love, like, my small town just had their candlelight stroll last week. Where they kind of like block off the main downtown. Apparently there was like 1,000 people just strolling around with candles. And then tomorrow night at the time of this recording is our tractor parade. And the tractor parade is getting to be bigger than the actual Santa Claus parade. And personally, I think it's way more fun. So that's, I love small town. Like candlelight strolls, tractor parades.
So, Nikki, is your tractor parade like all the vineyards that have their tractors, or is there
Pretty
a lot of
much,
farms?
yeah.
Or like
it's a really small loop. Like, the Santa Claus parade goes through the main strip of downtown. It's over an hour and a half long, probably, once like from beginning to end. Like, it's really, really big. The tractor parade started, I think, a couple years ago, or as long as I've lived here, and it's coming up on 8 years that I've lived in this town. And the first year, it lasted 10 minutes. There was maybe 15 tractors. And it was the harvesters from the vineyards. It was like farming tractors, big and small. It was them hauling wagons. It was just kind of like cute. And the tractors would be covered in Christmas lights. And then the next year it got bigger. And the next year got bigger. And last year, I think the parade was probably 35 minutes long.
Oh my gosh.
And this year, apparently, there's even more. I think like 45 tractors. And it's so fun because, again, some of these harvesters are probably 2.5 stories tall. And they're just covered in lights. One of the tractors has this special thing that they put like a big like Rudolph nose on the front of the tractor. But then it also has moose antlers coming out the side of it.
Oh my God. That's terrifying. I'm afraid of moose, right?
No, I did not. I love moose.
Oh my God, I'm
such majestic Canadian creatures.
I read
really
once.
fun.
I read once that if you're driving and you are driving into a moose, you won't realize it because they're so tall that you'll just see their legs, then they'll collapse on your car and fucking kill you. And so
you're dead.
I'm like,
you're dead.
Moose terrify me. I actually wrote it into my next book. Is Kate's terrified of moose?
You know what? They are majestic, but also terrifying. I love the videos of like tourists out in like northern Canada, Alberta, whatever. And they're like, "Oh, take a picture with the moose," and you just have the locals in the background going, "You're gonna die."
Yeah.
But they're very majestic creatures. But I just love I'm from a small town originally back east. We had similar things, but it's kind of nice being in like farm country because I find the small town vibes, especially as a tourist town predominantly.
Yeah.
The vibes are really fun. So I enjoy that. Like, we all have candlelight strolls.
It's so relatable, right? Everybody loves that feeling.
Yeah, and I think also there's like a reason that so often these romance novels are set in maybe not even upstate New York where Nora and I are. It's more like New England, and like northern New England you see a lot, where it's like it's Vermont, it's Maine, it's like these really tiny towns that, like, I just read one that was like a Germanic town, and so they were taking the German Christmas markets and just moving them to Vermont. And I was like, oh, that's a really great way to do it. So that way you get the cold, you get the mountains, because you also then have to drive through the mountains, and there are things that go wrong that way. Like you get all of those pieces of the puzzle. So what did you like steal from our specific town? But then like, what are the tropes that you were like, I just want to put this in because I love reading you didn't do ice skating, but that sort of like ice skating, hot chocolate. What are those micro tropes that you're like, I just want this to be in the winter book?
I really wanted them to pick out a Christmas tree. I just love the idea of just the visual of a Christmas tree lot and the lights strung overhead and the snow falling, and one's really grumpy about it and doesn't want a Christmas tree, and Lily's trying to persuade him. I just love that whole setup. Grumpy Sunshine is so fun to write because there's so much tension. It was my most fun book to write, actually. And I just love that. I love the idea of all the foods. So my books are really heavily influenced by recipes because that was a former career of mine. And I just love the idea of like winter cozy things like maple lattes and, cinnamon roll pancakes and things like that. So all of it worked perfectly in the winter.
So wait, I didn't buy the paperback copy. So do I still get the cinnamon roll pancake recipe?
You will.
Can I get it on your website?
Yes. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it's coming.
I meant to ask that because I was like, that sounds really good.
These are the important things.
I know.
About our reading experiences is, do I get the recipe?
Yes. Well, actually, I'm going to start a new kind of way to talk about my books, and I'm going to marry together my old food blogging experience with excerpts from my book. I'm going to call it Romance and a Recipe, and it's coming soon. It's coming later this month, and I'll just be kind of making the recipes from the book and then also other recipes that I enjoy and I think everybody else will. And I love those two things, eating and reading together. I mean, that's a natural pairing, so I'm excited. I'm excited to bring, I don't see anybody else doing it. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm excited to try it.
I love this because because, you know, the joke is when you get to a recipe online, there's always that huge, back in 1952,
Yes.
my grandma made this goulash recipe by the light of her basement. And
Damn
everything,
SEO.
jump to recipe. Nobody reads that. But if there was maybe romance story excerpts and maybe some sex, I would maybe spend a little bit more time before I scroll down to the chocolate chip cookie recipe at the bottom of the page.
I mean, Amber's
just
peach
putting it out there.
cobbler, Allie's apple pie. Like, there's some very sexy food scenes in your book. So, like, I've heard this story, but I want to hear you tell it here. Is like, how did you make the transition from food blogger to cookbook writer to romance author?
I love this pipeline.
Yeah, none of them match together. Well,
No, it does. It actually makes perfect sense when you tell the story, though.
Well, I started food blogging when I was on maternity leave with my third baby, and I thought like it was just family that was reading it, but it kind of took off, and it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. I always loved to cook. I'm certainly not professionally trained in any way. I'm an English teacher, so I did that for about 7 years, and it kind of was amazing. I had a traditional cookbook published. That's still a lot of fun to talk about and to make recipes from. And when I was done with that cookbook, it came out right as COVID hit. And when it came out, I was so burnt out. I remember my editor said, "Okay, now come up with 15 recipes that we can give away for free to promote your cookbook," which is very normal for them to ask. And I was like, "What? I can't do one more. I can't do it." And I was like, "That's not a good sign." So I pivoted to romance, which is something I grew up reading. It's my favorite genre. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a year. I'm going to write this book, and it's going to be fun. I'm not going to do any, cookbook stuff. And that's what I did. And I ended up absolutely loving it. So now I'm thinking about marrying the two together.
And I love also that, like, when you see the also by Norah Pritchard, the first thing is the cookbook. Like, it is still part of the romance author brand that you've cultivated.
Who knows? There might be a Northfield cookbook coming.
Ho-ho. Didn't you have somebody who wrote a review of your first romance novel who was like a former cookbook reader?
Yeah, so that's like a whole other discussion about marrying your audiences, because unfortunately most of my audience was built from cookbook and food blogging and lifestyle content. And so naturally, when I started writing romance, I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to pivot right here. If you're with me, awesome. If that's not your thing, I'll catch you later on something else." But a lot of people stayed, but then they read the book, which is a little spicy, right? And I think that I shocked some grandmas. When they read my first book.
Didn't you get a 1-star review that was
yeah, great story, awesome plot, why is there so much sex?
Okay, that is the same type of review you get on like food blogs where it's like, I substituted the applesauce for dried kale, and it really tasted bad. 1 out of 5 stars. And it's like, you didn't follow the fucking recipe, my dude.
Yes.
You kind of need that moisture. That is that exact same type of review.
Yes.
You always need the moisture in a romance novel.
Yeah.
The word moist creeps me out.
Always with the fluids. You have to have your fluid ratio okay here.
Has to be correct.
You don't want to get dehydrated. All right, so Norah, I sort of like pitched you with this too because you are small town in our small town, but like why do you think romance readers love small town so much? Why is small town like its own subcategory in Amazon?
Because there's so many relatable things, right? All the people that you meet in a small town, you can relate them to who's in your own town. The nosy neighbors, you get to know them. You feel like you're part of that small town. If you don't live in one, then you can aspire to it or, feel those nostalgic feelings. So I love that. I love the town that we live in. So I try to bring that into each book so that when my readers read it, they feel like they're coming back to a familiar place.
Yeah, and I think also like it works especially at Christmas time for the Christmas small town. Especially you get that sort of trope, and Nikki knows this. I just watched my first ever Hallmark movie, for an episode that we have coming out later this month, and
she had thoughts, she had feelings.
I have criticism, is what I have. I have a wow, that was twice as long as it needed to be thought, but. there is something where it's like you hit the trope so beautifully. You get the snowfall, you get the people moving from the big city back home, whether it's the Hallmark movie or sort of the Christmassy tropes of, the big city CEO moves home because she has to save the B&B, and the only person she can work with is the lumberjack who runs the tree farm. And like, I think Megan Quinn wrote that one. But, like, these sort of tropes stack so well, and they feel so satisfying. So what was it that you were like, small town plus Christmas? You said this was the most fun book to write. Is that part of it, or was it just like you just fell in love with these characters?
Well, I kind of I have all the books plotted beforehand. I have a very loose idea of what's going to happen and the archetype of each character, and that's what I start with. So I knew that it needed to be opposites attract for Lily. I knew that, Christmas was such a natural time to bring in like these warm, cozy feelings, but also balance it with the trauma of what they're going through. So it's not saccharine sweet, it's not, it's emotional. It's a little bit heavy. I actually started writing it and it was a little bit lighter, and they just didn't want to go there. The characters did not want to go there. And so I followed them, and they just really wanted to have sex all the time. And I had to, keep saying,
and they do a lot of that.
They do. It is my spiciest book yet, and but I felt like it served a purpose. So each of the sex scenes that I try to write, gratuitous sex is awesome. We all, enjoy reading that, of course. But, I also wanted it to grow their characters, to show their change. And I feel like those things needed to happen in this book because that's what Rush is using to deflect his feelings, to hide what's really going on. So I felt like it worked really well. But I remember I kept talking to my friend Julie, and I was like, I don't know. I sat down to write, the climax, and they did something else. They had a climax. Yeah.
I'm curious, Nora, just going off of Meg's, I'm sure it'll be a fabulous discussion when we do discuss that Hallmark movie. Sometimes I find with Christmas tropes, people have like a really visceral reaction in the negative to them. There's a new kind of trend on TikTok of showing the other side of quote unquote Hallmark movies, as in, oh, this is the fiance driving back to the big city because his fiance left him for a tree farmer. And he's like, I don't know. She just dumped me all of a sudden. Like they're starting to show that. Or they're having the small town guy come to the big city because she can have a career too. So I think in many ways, some people are, I'll say, course correcting, even if it's, there's no right or wrong course here. But they're really trying to subvert some of those common tropes, or they get a little reticent to use certain ones because they're almost preemptively thinking of the criticism that might come their way of, Hallmark. No judgment on Hallmark. I watched multiple in the last couple days. So was there any trope or style that when you were writing this book in particular, but even the others, that you maybe had a little bit of hesitation on, do I actually want to use this, or is this too tropey?
No, tropes are my bread and butter. So, we all, even though sometimes we get a little frustrated or maybe we're like rolling our eyes because we know what happens in this trope, which is why people are subverting it, like you mentioned, always trying to come up with a new way of presenting it. Tropes are what tickle our brain. And those are just something that, generations, millennia of people, when we tell stories, that's what we latch onto. Something like lights up in our brain when we hear those first words, like only one bed, or, and my brain doesn't light up for certain tropes. So I just go with what I want to read. That's what I enjoy reading. That's what I know other readers must be attracted to some of those things too. So no, I lean into them heavily because I like to read them.
Now, can I just ask, like, what are the tropes where you're like, no, I just don't pick those up?
I am not into beta males. That's just not something that I've ever really. But I grew up on bodice rippers, so yeah. That's kind of how I started, and that's definitely something I'm drawn to. So I have a girlfriend that loves those kind of books, and she'll recommend it, and she'll be like, "Oh, never mind, that's not your type of hero."
You don't want the deferential sweet ones. You don't want the cinnamon. The only cinnamon rolls that you have are on your pancakes.
Mm-hmm. True. And the dogs. I always have dogs in my book. So, I like a protective hero. I like somebody who's strong. I've never been into a hero who has like a lot of self-deprecation. That's just not something I'm attracted to. So, and it's not something I'd be comfortable writing because I think I'd suck at it. So I just stick with what I know.
We like it. Know your limits, play within them.
Yes.
And like we have tropes on the record that we are like, I'm not going to read a nanny trope. Nope. But then I also have a nanny trope that, like a nanny trope book that same for me. Accidental pregnancy. Nope. But you can do it well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also where sometimes these tropes can be both helpful to give us an idea of what the book is about.
Yes.
But also, like, if you just write what people are expecting, then they're not going to want to read it. You have to find something to make it interesting. You have to say she's not just a runaway bride. She's a runaway bride who runs out of the church and into the truck of the sheriff and then takes off. You know, you can like sort of start the book from there. So she doesn't have to deal with her feelings for a while, but eventually she does have to go home, right? Like, so you had some fun ways to take the tropes that we already knew to be able to say, this is the runaway bride, this is the grumpy sheriff, but also there's a reason why he's grumpy, and you start to see that in his backstory and in his like big T trauma moments of loss.
Yeah, and you know, that's kind of how I start every story, is with what is the character's wound and you know, a positive character arc, and that's how I fit all of the plot into it. That's just, it works in my brain. It tickles something in my brain and it makes sense when I'm writing. So everything that happens has to either, you know, make them come closer to the end of that arc or pulls them away from it. And Rush, I knew he really needed to be vulnerable and he needed to stop running, which is such a parallel because Lily is running, but she's running for different reasons and she decides to go back, whereas Rush is running and he doesn't want to go back and he doesn't choose to go back. So it was fun to put those two together, which you think are on the same line, and they're not. And Lily tells him that at the end, like, we're both running, but one of us is willing to, you know, come back and face it, whereas you're not.
Literal Rush away from his problems. Very well named character. Sometimes you see that character and you're like, yeah, I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
So meta.
Exactly. And Lily, she's like sort of sweet, and you know, that Lily White feeling, that very sort of soft floral ballerina, you could feel it as soon as she arrived on the page in the first book. It's like she's gonna be a bit of a softer touch than Amber, who is just a firecracker. You know, like having those sisters who all have their different personalities, and Amber being the one who lights up, the one who's bright and bold. It definitely, the naming conventions that you're using definitely worked for me.
Oh, good. Yeah. And you know, I feel like there's always a character that you can get into their head easier. And Lily was tough for me at first. I really had to dive deep into her archetype and think about what's important to her and how she would respond, because it's not my normal response. And that's our challenge as writers, right? Is to get into their heads and think not what I would say, but what would she say in this situation. So Amber was easy. Even Allie was easier, but Lily was more of a challenge, but I actually ended up really enjoying it because I had to think so hard about what she would say in this situation.
Okay, now I have to ask, your fourth character is it Evie or Evie? Because
Evie.
Nikki and I pronounce it differently, and we had a whole podcast where
I'm trying to remember what book, what was that?
Was it Hothead?
I think it was Hothead, because I say Evie like Rachel Weisz's character in The Mummy.
And I say Evie like Evelyn, so it's like my aunt, I had an aunt who was Aunt Evie, and so I've always said Evie, but some people, and so we just called her Evie Evie for the whole.
Yeah, it was Evie Evie. Evie Evie had a great backstory. We were like, and I always think it's funny. I don't remember who I was talking to last week just on this. They are an audiobook reader. So audiobook people always know the correct pronunciation.
Oh yeah.
I do not like audiobooks. I will never listen to them. So I make up my own pronunciations of how I think it sounds. And then I will be talking to someone and they go, who? I'm like, oh, this person. They go, who is that? I'm like, it's the main character. They're like, oh, you mean this? And I was, oh, yeah, that one. Sure. So I love this. Like, let's get the official pronunciation down so that we don't have another Evie Evie situation on our hands.
This is Evie.
If it comes from the author, I have to follow it, right?
I don't know. Didn't the creators of like GIFs/GIFs, he said it was pronounced GIFs, and I was like, no, it's GIFs because G stands for graphics.
Yeah.
That is my soapbox. You're welcome. I want to talk about some specific winter tropes. because we have another episode coming up later this month on kind of like Christmas micro tropes. We kind of dive in to our favorites, things that are very common. We play a little game, a little teaser for y'all listening. I think it comes out Christmas Eve. So you can play it with your family. It's not family friendly.
Did I call it Love or Murder? Was that the name of the game?
I don't remember, but it's basically, there's a choose your own adventure aspect to that episode.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's very amusing. So it's things like, choose your location, choose the conflict point. And Meg mentioned this earlier. Meg loves snowed in forced proximity. I'd say it's probably one of your top 5 tropes.
Probably up there, yeah.
Yeah. So I would just love to ask both of you this. I like the trope. It's not one that super stands out to me. But what is it about forced proximity combined with snowed in? Like, why is it winter? Because we read a book way back in the early days of the show that was during a hurricane. And so they got stuck in this luxury hotel for like a day. And we're like, you can still go talk to other people. You're literally in a hotel surrounded by thousands of people. Sure, you might not have electricity for a little bit, but like, you're fine. So why is it snowed in forced proximity? That seems to scratch, to your point, Nora, that like mental itch that you're like, yes, this is Christmas when people can't leave each other because the snow is up to the roof line.
Oh, it feels so good. I want to read one right now after that. It's isolating, right? There's nobody else around. You feel like you're in a snow globe. It's it's distance from reality. And that's actually what happens with Lily and Rush, is that all of their inhibitions and their roles are stripped away because they're in this, snow globe type of a situation. And then you can really see who they are at their base. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I think that's it for me too, is there's no one else to talk to. Mm-hmm. When we say forced proximity, sometimes that's like, oh, they work in the same workplace and they can complain to their coworkers. But like, this is really, you're put into a fishbowl. In this case, it's like, these are two people who barely know each other. They are forced to be in the same place. They are forced to rely on each other. And I think that that's a big piece of snowed in that we didn't get in like the hurricane prep book. It was like, oh, the entire hotel can come together. And they happened to have a bunch of, who are the people who, not hoarders. What's the phrase for people who like are survivalists?
Preppers.
Yeah.
Preppers.
There were a bunch of doomsday preppers that were having a conference there during the hurricane. So they just happened to have all of the supplies, right?
Naturally.
And they had time to prepare. Versus when you have a snowed in, blizzards can happen very suddenly. And then you have this moment of like, there's this person I don't know and I am dependent on them for survival. You also get the like, it's fucking cold out there and we need to conserve our firewood, so we need that body heat. There's definitely only one bed wherever you're snowed in, because like, who has a cabin with two?
It's probably like a hunter's cabin and there might be like a tin of beans and that's it.
And she's a vegetarian, so all she can have is the tomato soup, and she takes her like wedding lingerie and puts it over the top of the deer head.
God.
Like I don't know, but there's something about like, not just that particular scenario, but there's something about being in a confined location with a person. And as a writer, I have never written snowed in. I don't know that I will. But I have that scene in All to Work No Play where the two of them are trapped in an elevator. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the best things that I could do as a writer was to say, you guys are trapped in an elevator for upwards of an hour. Mm-hmm. Now, at this point in the book, it was about like a third of the way into the book, this is when it happened. What are the things that they will and will not reveal to each other? Mm-hmm. Because she would have happily sat in silence for an hour. Except that he won't sit still. And she's like, just stop drumming. Just like fucking shut up. Just stop moving, right? Like, and just like letting the friction, you can't escape the friction of that relationship. And so you have to confront things. And that's, if anyone's read All to Work No Play, it's like, that's when Cruz is like, well, let's just play Truth or Dare. Like you have to find a way to pass the time. You have to find a way to make it work. Like, he's claustrophobic because of course he is, because why wouldn't he be claustrophobic? And so you get to like stack the vulnerabilities upon each other and also make those decisions of what will I and won't I share with this person that I don't know very well. So in the case of Lily and Rush, I loved it because it was like, Lily doesn't want to talk about why she left her wedding. It's still very fresh, very new. She hasn't had a chance to process it yet. And Rush is like, okay, you don't have to talk about it. And having somebody who doesn't push her, but who is there when she's ready to process it was really important narratively, that she is a people pleaser. She doesn't want to explain why she would have made this decision, but she sort of like opens up very slowly. And then also, like, he's hot, and they have this big sexy scene, and then game over as soon as they leave the cabin. So like they get to have this intimacy without it being in a reality. You're in this fake non-reality bubble. And then the snow plows come. It wasn't snow plows, it was snowmobiles. And reality smacks you back in the face and goes, nope, go back to town, go back to your life, go deal with the fallout, you know? And I think that there's something really nice about like being able to live in a non-reality with somebody else for a short amount of time. That's just like you're forced. It almost like a little bit of Stockholm syndrome of like, we went through this difficult thing together and we survived. Lily in that case was like in a very revealing wedding dress, and so like she's fucking cold and struggling to make it through the snow because she's in these heels, and you know, like she's in this really vulnerable space, and he just throws her over his shoulder. And you know, Nora loves her alpha heroes.
Which is yeah.
No, go ahead, Nora.
I was just going to say it's really symbolic because he strips her of her dress. He takes a knife out, alpha knife out, and literally cuts her dress off at the knees so she can walk through the snow. And I thought, you know, that's a symbol. She's leaving behind her life, not only physically, but, you know, now he strips her of her clothes, tosses her over her shoulder when she can't walk anymore. And that's really when she enters into this new world with him.
That new threshold. We go into that, you know, meeting the mentor, moving into the new version of her world and trying to figure out what she wants out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Nikki's pop culture corner for a second here. Meg, you mentioned the TV episodes that stay in one place. So they're called bottle episodes. The idea being that they trap the action in a single place like a ship in a bottle. So this actually started with the original Star Trek TV show. Friends kind of did it with Chandler getting stuck in the ATM vestibule. Community had a really famous bottle episode where they were trying to find the pens and nobody could leave the study room until they owned up to who stole the pen. So they're low budget episodes confined to a set. So when Star Trek did it, it was because they said, we're not going to go to alien planets. We're not going to go elsewhere. It's literally only going to be on the Enterprise because we want to save costs, so that saved money can be used in a future episode, so it can be made bigger. We can employ more actors, so it can be used in a really big moment in the season. Usually they'll go off planet and there's something big dramatic that they have to like deep dive into and then work together to survive through. And just as I was thinking about that, I find it very funny when we layer that on top of this idea of snowed in forced proximity, that putting that almost like critical mass into a singular location is the catalyst for bigger moments later. Almost like they saved their budget and then the budget got allocated later in the story. Yeah. Thank you for sitting through Nikki's pop culture corner about Star Trek.
I didn't know that.
No, I forgot they were called bottles. Thank you for that correction. Yeah, and I think you're right that like it's almost like they're building up their interest in each other so that it can compound later. Mm-hmm. They're investing in that relationship, especially if they don't know each other. I love like snowed in enemies where over the course of a few days of being snowed in, they suddenly realize, oh, we were actually like lied to by our parents about this thing, or I misunderstood this thing, or, oh, we were both played by this same ex and that's why we were against each other. But actually it wasn't what we thought it was. And I don't hate you, but they're like the tension of being in a small space with somebody you don't know or don't like can be a really interesting character development tool.
And it's delicious. All that tension of, you know, two people who would never normally talk to each other. At the beginning, Lily talks about how every time she's run into him in town, she turns bright red and, you know, stutters and doesn't know what to say. And then what do you think is going to happen when they're in a cabin together? So it just builds all, like you said, it builds all this anticipation and tension, which is delicious. It's like catnip.
Yeah, and it sets, like you said, it's like we don't need to have a lot of setting. We can have it be quiet and still and let them get to know each other. And I think that that's also, it's like a writing skill to be able to write without the big set pieces and all the people coming in and the external validation of things where you have to sit with your thoughts. It's a very different skill set as a writer than, you know, let me blow up the casino and light it all on fire and then there's a ship that comes in, you know, like being able to be quiet is hard for humans to write, hard for humans to read sometimes, where you have to be alone with your thoughts. And I think both of these characters had to be alone with their thoughts for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you say that, because it makes me think of character-driven romance as opposed to action-driven romance with like an outside catalyst happening, which, you know, I'm not drawn to those types of romances. I love to like marinate in these feelings and these emotions and think about, you know, how does it affect every realm of their life and how would it affect them together, as opposed to having this, you know, big conflict outside of them. Of course there's conflict, right? It has to move the story forward, but I love that part. I love that character, that deep dive into their character and how it changes or, you know, retreats according to what's happening. I love to explore that. That's what I like to read, and that's what I like to write.
You can't always have the Deus Ex Machina moment where it's like, oh, like back to the Hallmark movie that we're going to talk about, where it's like every time he's like, so I think I have feelings for you, and it's like the friends coming in, they're like, are you telling her how you have feelings for her? And it's like, interrupted again. But you can't do that. Maybe it's like, oh, you know, a tree falls on the cabin, that can be external, but you don't have any other characters you can rely on. You have to really sink into those two or however many people are in your snowed-in cabin situation.
So Runaway Bride, I always find a really interesting trope in stories, because the first thing that comes to mind anytime I think about this is the Richard Gere, Julia Roberts movie, which I think is one of the most problematic movies the two of them have ever done together, even more so than Pretty Woman, which is saying something. But there's something
My favorite.
Oh, girl. Yeah, I have thoughts and feelings. But there's something about that Runaway Bride aspect, because as we were talking, I was thinking about, because even Meg, in your books, nobody likes the fiance that the female character starts off their story with. The male fiance that a female character starts with is like the most disposable male character trope in the world.
It's so true.
Like, even when we talked about Always Be My Maybe, like Daniel Day Kim, they're like, I gotta go, and then I'm gonna go hang out with Padma Lakshmi. Like, your Kate is with Paul, Meg? Is that his name in your book?
See, you don't remember him because he's so milquetoast. He's so
of course
boring.
He's named Paul.
He was Tom for a while, and I was like, I don't want to name him Tom's too good of a name to
Tom
waste
is too good of a name.
Paul.
Tom is a solid, God-loving man, and he doesn't deserve to get left at the altar.
You can't waste a good name on a bad character.
No, you can't.
There's just something in my brain against, like, the fiance that nobody likes and that we know is going to be gone by, like, chapter 1. And having the runaway bride still in gown happen, like in that Kevin Kline movie In and Out, when he leaves Joan Cusack at the altar and then she runs away to the bar and meets up with Dylan, not McDermott, the other guy. I can't remember which actor that is, but you know,
Matt Dillon, thank you. I could picture him in my head and I was like, he's the guy, and Joan Cusack was his teacher when he was in high school. He always loved her. And there's just something in my brain that gets just really amused by this concept of the disposable fiance and the woman wearing the wedding gown and everybody looking at him going, I didn't know that happened in real life. I thought that was just in film. So why Runaway Bride?
So I feel like with Lily, I needed to really have her have a moment. Before I started writing, I knew that she's always been a pleaser. I talked about her in the previous 2 books. Her sisters told her their reservations about her fiance Tucker. So I knew before writing that I wanted her to have a moment where she was like, she saw the photo that revealed his affair, and I wanted her to have a moment where she was like, can I just push that down and pretend I didn't see it? Can I go back to, you know, this bubble of people pleasing and not wanting to make any noise or make any, you know, ripples in this calm, still lake that she's always trying to achieve? And I wanted her to have that moment because it's not necessarily, it's not flattering. That's not a flattering moment, right? But it happens and it's realistic. And I wanted everyone to kind of read that and think, what would I do in that situation? You know, everyone's staring at you. Your sisters, her future mother-in-law, Angela Cawthorne, is this like terrible character. And Lily's a little intimidated by her. And so I wanted her to have that moment and then choose, you know, to go forward and to run out of the church. And then of course there's the imagery that goes along with it, right? The veil trailing behind. It makes like an incredible vision in your head. So I loved both of those things. I wanted to really think about her character and what she would choose and how each of us would feel in that moment. And
I think also it sets up the scene of like, how does Lily choose herself? throughout the book. And even though Rush says before anything happens between them, he's like, this is if this happens, this is temporary. I'm leaving in 3 months. This is a weekend thing, then it becomes a 3-month thing, but he always says he's literally rushing out the door, right? But then to have Lily have to make a choice that's like, at first she's like, well, this is maybe just friends with benefits, maybe it's just temporary, maybe it's getting over Tucker, maybe I'm having all these terrible first dates with somebody else and I just want to feel good for a while because dating sucks. But also, like, she doesn't wait until he leaves town. And I think that was such an important choice for her character, is to say, like, after Amber has a baby, she's like, no, that's what I want. And I don't want to delay. I don't want to wait another month. I don't want to fall more in love with you. I don't want to be more heartbroken when you leave, and you can't give me what I want. And I'm finally able to say that. She finally gets there to be able to say, like, I can't push down the feelings of people pleasing and just wanting to be there for somebody else. I finally have to acknowledge that my needs matter and my goals matter. And I think that, like, we as women are socialized to put everyone else's needs first, to pause our own desires, to put our own goals sort of on the back burner, to say, well, it'll happen eventually, and, you know, trust and it'll happen. But she really does commit to herself in a way that I thought was beautiful.
Thank you. I loved that part too, and I needed to have something that was not so hugely climactic. I mean, he, of course, Rush delivers twins on the side of the road, which is perfect for, of course, naturally.
Naturally. What else would he be doing?
And that's symbolic too, right? Because that's where he wasn't able to save Carolyn Whitmore, and he was able to save her daughter. So I knew that when I was crafting that, you know, that climactic moment, that it needed to be something that would redeem himself, but also something that Lily would say, you know what, this is not going to work for me, and I'm going to choose myself for the first time.
Nora, is there anything that, like, you loved about writing this particular book? Is there, like, you said this was your favorite book to write. Why was it Lily's book that was, like, the favorite one to write?
I loved writing this book so much because, well, naturally, Rush, I just fell in love with him. He just, you know, I love a tortured, wounded hero who's still so noble and such a good man. And he's a protector.
The uniform, I think, did it for you.
The Stetson, come on.
I'm so there for you. I'm so happy you said the Stetson. I don't know what it is about a big, but, like, you know, I have problems reading law enforcement type characters in books now.
Same.
But there's just something about a big guy in a Stetson. You're like, this is everything I wanted, and I'm fine with everything.
Yeah. Oh, and it was fun to research that too.
I do want to say I've been running Amazon ads this month, and I had some of my keywords show up for police romance, and I was like, turn that off. My books are not police romance. It was for All Work No Play, so I think maybe because Cruz had been former military, it triggered something, and I was like, do you realize that this was, like, anti-military? Like,
I know, it's like, because you specifically said, like, military folks should not read this because Cruz was in the military.
Yeah.
He's not exactly happy about his experience.
No, and that was entirely based on my own husband. That was not like a, you know, that was going, oh man, the Navy is hard. Let's not do that. So I think also we have to be really careful about the way that we choose our characters. But I think having Rush be, you know, out of the military, being he chose the military for his family, right? And then he became a cop because that was the next logical step, and he is a protector character, and it really did work really well in that, like, Norah Pritchard alpha male can't discuss his feelings but wants to take care of the women in his life sort of vibe to it. So yeah, that decision to make him a cop and have the Stetson and have the uniform and have Lily even say at some points, like, I don't know how I feel about the fact that he has a gun in my house.
That was for sure based on my own feelings of being uncomfortable with that. And, you know, I think that it just worked really well for Rush's character because he was so in control, right? He's a picture of authority. His job matches his personality, but inside he's an absolute mess and he can't control himself inside. And it starts to leak out little bit by being in the town and seeing the little girl whose life he saved, but he couldn't save her mother. So it's this contrast of how he is on the outside versus how he is on the inside. That was really fun and interesting to explore.
Plus, and I think we talked about this before we started recording, the handcuffs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as soon as the handcuffs appeared in the cabin, and then they came back at his house later, and then they mentioned them in the ballet studio. And I was like, when are they going to use the damn...
I was like, this is Chekhov's handcuffs. Like, come on. The handcuffs that we see in the first act are going to show up in the later act and solve a problem. Let's go, Chekhov's handcuffs.
Mm-hmm. And the problem was incredibly hot sex scene on the staircase.
I had to have that.
Of course. Where else would you use them?
I know. Originally, I had them in a different scene, and I was like, I'm gonna tease that out a little bit longer. And really, at the end, when he does use them, he's just so down for her, down so badly for her that he wants to keep her in place, right? Which is kind of the fun part of using handcuffs, both metaphorically and physically. She's been running from him. She's been kind of giving him the cold shoulder, and he's just like, no more. We're going to stay here.
I am literally cuffing you to my house so you cannot leave me, but I can leave you. Mm-hmm. You can't leave me, but I can leave you. And
but
I
he
think
doesn't
that's
want
the
to.
Control.
Yeah. And Lily, of course, all those feelings around it, that's totally outside of her realm of normal experience. She's already uncomfortable. I've built up that emotion since the very first scene at the cabin. And then they finally come out and she's like, yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I like a man in control.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're going to wrap this up, we usually ask the question of, like, what do you ship the most? So, like, wherever we want to take this, what do you ship the most about small town or holiday novels or this particular book? So, Nikki, I'm going to start with you to give Norah a second to take a breather.
What do I ship the most? I think in this particular scenario, it was the snowed in aspect of it. I think especially when you combine it with the grumpy sunshine, that becomes a real emotional ignition moment to set up the rest of it. So for me, it's not necessarily about like the forced proximity scene. It was great. I can take it or leave it as a trope, largely speaking. But I think in Nora's writing, particularly for this, there was something really satisfying about when you're in almost like a liminal space, but that liminal space is not transitory. That liminal space actually creates like a snowflake to snowball effect for later. And I find that very satisfying, generally speaking, with this. So I very much enjoyed that, especially when the snowflake has a Stetson on. It's great.
Same.
So that is what I ship the most.
Did we discover a new kink for you, Nikki? Is there like a specifically cowboy hat, like a cowboy hat?
You know I like westerns. You know I like
but
cowboy.
I didn't know it was the hat that did it for you.
Fuck yeah, it's the hat. It's the hat with like the really worn-in jeans. Like, how do they always write it? That's gone white at the stress points, and like the chambray shirt that's like unbuttoned just a touch too low. Yes. Have we not discussed this?
This is reminding me.
That's why I love cowboy.
Do you remember when we interviewed Matt Wardell and all of his books are in Portland? And so we were like, all these New Yorkers would be like in these sort of preppy outfits, but his are like, these are LL Bean chic.
Yeah. Which is again funny because like I'm from the East Coast. The LL Bean flagship headquarters was like, just across the border from where we lived. I'm like, I'm very familiar with LL Bean plaid and the puffy down vest. I wear it all the time. This is just more of like the Midwest to West Coast version of that for me.
I love that upstate New York is the Midwest version of that for you.
America. It's all just a big blob.
Westerns. The Westerns. Norah, what's the thing that you ship the most about the book, the tropes, the Christmas novels?
I love the idea of going back to Northfield. I just love to kind of think about different relationships that are in the town. It makes me feel like happy, like I'm visiting people that I already know. And I just love the town of Northfield and writing in that world.
I think for me, it is Lily's arc was my favorite thing about this, is that people pleasing to taking agency for yourself and making decisions about your own goals was my favorite thing about this book, is her character growth in there. And then I think for me with Small Town, it's all the meddling grandmas. I love a meddling grandma. I think I put it in my fake trope that we're going to have in the next couple episodes, right, Nikki?
You did.
Yeah.
There was a interfering grandma.
Mm-hmm. In this case, it's all of the aunts who are like, oh, you should be there with Sheriff Sexy. You know, like having that small town, you know, everyone has an opinion. Everyone's trying to set you up with their nephew, their grandson, their whomever. I love that like vibe of people trying to help, but really not helping whatsoever.
Yeah. And you know, that is a trope, but that's actually how my family works. If you were to come to one of our Sunday dinners, I have a lot of aunts and they have a lot of things to say about everything, and I absolutely love that, and it shows up in the book. It's real life.
I kind of got that feeling like that was maybe a little close to home.
Boundaries, what are those?
Before we head into the question of what we are shipping this week, a beautiful reminder that if you want to celebrate Christmas spirit and imbue us with that spirit, you should head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Leave us a rating, leave us a review, subscribe. Even if you prefer to listen in a browser or via Substack, this one thing that you can do for us to head on over, just go over there, subscribe, and then leave it alone. That still helps us gain more visibility on the platform, which we really appreciate, so that we can become podcast queens of the universe as we talk about our romance, and we would love that for you. All right, let us talk about what we are shipping this week. I'm going to throw it to you. What you shipping?
Along with most of the world right now, I'm totally shipping The Heated Rivalry, the series on HBO.
Oh my God.
Yes! The books were
God.
amazing, and then the HBO, I've just been so happy with how they followed the story, and of course, the actors are sublime.
Oh, I love all of it. We've done one episode on it. Another episode came out this week. We're going to do another one. There's just something about hockey butts with emotional heart that just satisfies me in many ways.
I love that quote.
Put it on a t-shirt, put it in the thing. It's great. No, and like their social media has been amazing throughout the entire run. I love them so much. I'm totally here for it. So you've read all the books. I'm the only one on the show that I haven't read the books yet. I almost cracked last week. I really wanted to read them because I just needed to know how things are going to finish. I was like, nope, I'm going to wait to finish the entire show.
Oh, you're waiting? Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't read 6 books in an hour. I'm so disappointed.
I know. I'm growing as a human.
Your patience. Well, I'm going to tell your therapist. I'm going to report back and let her know how well you're doing.
Check. Meg, what are you shipping?
So Nora and I are in a group here in the Rochester, New York area that is all romance writers, because apparently there are enough of us. There's like something in the water. I think it might be that it's really fucking cold here, and so we have nothing to do in the winter but sit and drink like Bailey's spiked coffee or hot cocoa and write or read romance novels. It just is what it is. So there's 2 women who are also in the group who are Buffalo natives. Their names are Jessica Topper, who was with us for the Rockstar episode that we did last May, and her friend Amanda Usen. They're both Jewish, and they are writing a 4-year-long Hanukkah series. So I talked about this last year. I talked about the 2 books that came out last year were The Menorah Matchmaker and The Rugelach Road Trip. And then this year they put out on the first day of Hanukkah 2 more books that are Locked and Loaded and The Holiday Fling. And in Locked and Loaded, it is 2 mistaken identities. So one of them is pretending to be her twin sister, and the twin sister it has to like she's a huge movie star. She's like a Scarlett Johansson level movie star, but like grew up like in a Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen situation, but then like Ashley sort of went away and Mary Kate became this big name. And so the sister Zeepy is pretending to be her famous sister, and she gets onto the cruise ship that runs around New York City every Friday of Hanukkah, and she sees someone who she thinks is her bodyguard, but it's not actually her bodyguard. It's just this guy, Jonah. And he's like a bit of a protector character, and he sees that she's struggling, and he's the one that realizes that she's not actually Kara. She's not actually the celebrity. She's the sister, because he used to watch the like Full House-ish type of show. And so it's these dual mistaken identities over the course of the night. That is Jessica's book, Locked and Loaded. And then The Holiday Fling is Amanda's book. It also came out the same day. They actually just put out their anthology of the first 4 books if you want to go like binge all of these books. But that one is a professional cake decorator who's doing all of these wedding cakes. She takes a vacation to go like see her favorite artist in Palm Beach, Florida. She has a fling with him that she thinks is just going to be this like one night stand situation where they feel really connected, but he lives in Florida. So what can she do? And then it turns out that he's a rabbi in New York. And the reason that he has the secret identity as an artist is because he doesn't want the people in his congregation and in his synagogue to know that he draws these incredibly erotic paintings. So those are the 2 books of the Matzo Baller this year. We already have plans, and I can't believe that we planned this far ahead, to interview both Jessica and Amanda next year for the final year of the Matzo Baller. So go read them now.
Many years in development.
Yes, we will remind you next November to go get the Matzo Baller anthology. But for right now, I am shipping the Matzo Baller. All right, Nikki, take us home. What are you shipping?
For me, it is the Wild Heart Ranch series by Kelly Fox. I'm in a real reread cycle right now. So I've been rereading Kelly Fox's entire catalog related to Wrecked Guardians. And now I'm on to the Wild Heart Ranch series. So this is where I get my cowboys kind of. Like the rest of Kelly Fox's books in this series, it's kind of vigilante style. This particular series is about Wild Heart Ranch, this run by Charlie Willis, who you meet in the previous series. He does search and rescue, but he also is involved in like anti-trafficking efforts. So the series is tracking the people who work on the ranch. You have Charlie's book. You have the 2 brothers who were brought in to do the equine therapy and the behavioral therapy. And then the book series finishes with Ant's book, and he is one of the survivors that they rescue in the first book of the Wild Heart Ranch series. I like how Kelly Fox writes. It's really thoughtful. It's really sexy. And even though it is dealing with extremely rough topics like trafficking, it still does show up in a way that makes you feel good when you read it. The characters are awesome. They're very funny, even as many of them have had tragic backstories. But everything ends up well in the end. Because just like when we were talking with Only James and Shannon, the only people that get really hurt are bad people. And I'm fine with that. So
totally fine with that.
If you want some like vigilante justice with like some nice high heat, the Wild Heart Ranch series is great. But if you haven't read the previous series, I would definitely start with Wrecked and Wrecked Guardians as they kind of set up the rest of the universe. It's on KU. So head on over and grab all of them. This is like my 4th reread.
I love that for you. All right. Well, Norah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you? What do you want to pitch? Tell the people what you want and need.
Oh, I'm all over social media at Norah Pritchard, so come say hi. You can see, I love to do behind the scenes of writing and, of course, food content. Recipe and a Romance is coming soon, so hopefully I'll see everyone there.
All right, guys, go follow Norah. Definitely subscribe to the podcast. We have more coming for you later this month. We're going to do that micro trope ranking game in next week's episode. We're going to be back to finally discuss the Hallmark movie. And then we've got one more heated rivalry coming in January. So make sure to subscribe, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Bye.